The topic that we are going to be discussing today is of utmost importance. We are actually living in a very specific age in history. Compared to the entire history of human civilization, from the dawn of human societies, the age we are living is actually the age of desires, the age of hedonism, the age of materialism, the age of a lot of these postmodern philosophies that are entirely focused on pleasure seeking and self-satisfaction. As Muslims living in such an age, there are a lot of things that we need to be concerned of, especially with regards to protecting our iman, especially with regards to defending our chastity. So we'll be having a very comprehensive discussion on this particular topic based on a hadith. But before directly going ahead, let me give you the general rules and regulations as I always do. First of all, try to make your intentions as pure as possible. Say to yourself that you are sitting in this class for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say to yourself that you're sitting in this class for the sake of developing yourself. Say to yourself that you're doing this solely for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have said that to yourself, say yes in the chat. If you have said that to yourself, say yes in the chat. Very good. Have a notebook with you to take the important notes, because later on when you are reviewing, it'll be very beneficial for you, inshallah. And also, just like I always say, the amount of output you're going to have from this particular session is going to be based on the amount of time you're completely focused on it, and also the intensity to which you participate in the session. So I'll be asking you a lot of important questions, and I want you to shoot your answers as fast as possible. All right, just shoot your answers as fast as possible. It's no problem if it is wrong, no problem, but we are here for discussion. I'm here to learn from you, and you're here, if you can, to learn something from the session. And thirdly, don't use social media while in the class. This is very, very important. Your focus, your attention has to be completely in the session. As Cal Newport says in his book, Deep Work, the more you use social media, your span of attention just decreases very, very, diminishingly. All right, so just make sure you don't use social media while in the class. And also an assignment will be given at the end of the session, so make sure you do the assignments as well. And most importantly, don't turn on your mic. So with that, we are directly going to the session with a very, very, very important question. And that is this: is pornography addiction a major problem in the society? Is pornography addiction a major problem in the society? Okay, so the unanimous answer here is yes, right? Being a student of psychology, I've seen a lot of statistics on this particular topic, saying that this much percent of people are addicted to this filth, saying that millions and millions of people, including young children, are addicted to this stuff. But often, from a pragmatic, practical perspective, I've never, leveled it up. I've never thought about how much people might be suffering from this around me. And I do very specifically remember during my first year of studying psychology for my bachelor's, I've seen all these, different data, I've seen all these different statistics, but I never thought of it to be an important issue that needs addressing. I thought like it was very clear. Pornography is haram, and alcohol is haram, drugs are also haram. So it's very clear. I mean, it doesn't seem very sensible for people to engage in it, like directly, knowing that it's completely haram. So, I thought like it was not such a big issue. But then once, while giving khutbah, I used to be a khatib near the masjid, near my home. I used to give khutbah in the Malayalam language. And, one day specifically, I chose this particular topic because it was related to shahawat, related to controlling desires. So I was giving the khutbah. I did not give, much importance to this particular topic, but yes, I was speaking by touching on this particular topic. When I was speaking, like there were a lot of youth in the masjid, who were sitting in the front, in the middle, and in the back. When I was speaking about this particular topic, I saw their face change. When I spoke about the importance of staying away from this particular sin, I saw regrets on their face. When I talked about the punishments of committing zina, and this is zina through the eyes, I saw some of them tearing up. And after the khutbah, after the class, a few people came in, we spoke. And that made real sense to me. All the statistics and all the data that I've seen, now I saw that in practice. The amount of people who are addicted to this stuff is extremely, extremely huge. And usually the statistics, it's based on study reports saying that, they do surveys and questionnaires, and the data is based on that. And it's very plausible and possible. It's more probable that there are much, much, much more people who are addicted to this stuff than what the data usually show. So this is the reality of the situation, my dear brothers and sisters. What I would say is pornography addiction should be in the topmost priority of the concerns of our society. Agreed or disagreed? Because this is a problem that has affected all homes in the Muslim Ummah. How many millions of homes are there? It has affected all of them. It has affected all of them. It was quite impossible for me to first completely accept this reality. Like, we know drugs are haram, we know alcohol is haram, this is also completely haram, but then how would millions and millions of people, a majority of the Muslim Ummah, fall into this particular trap? And that goes back to the psychology of desires. And we'll be talking more on this in today's session, inshallah. But at the same time, let me ask you another question. Now we have understood that pornography addiction is one of the biggest problems in the Muslim Ummah. And is not only, by people who are, in the adult stage or the teenagers. There are children who are watching it who are very, very small, very, very little. For example, a case that I've seen was from a child who was 13 years old, who had an entire hard disk of this stuff with thousands and thousands of videos and pictures. It was impossible for me to believe. And I've seen much more cases as such. I used to be in CLAN, Childline's Ambassadors Network. And if you look at the Childline reports that are coming from one district alone, you'll be astonished at how much sexually pervasive and perverted a community has become. So this is a topic that needs to be addressed as soon as possible, as fast as possible, as deeply as possible, as comprehensively as possible. But the sad reality is it's not getting the attention that it deserves. Let us look back to the last year, 2021. In 2021, there are about 50 weeks. All right, so 50 weeks means how much Jum'ah? 50 weeks means how much Jum'ah? We have one Jum'ah per week. So 50 weeks approximately, we'll be having 50 Jum'ah, right? 50 Jum'ahs. In 50 Jum'ahs, you get to hear 50 khutbahs. And these khutbahs are supposed to be about topics that are of extreme contemporary relevance that the society is currently facing. That is one of the objectives of the khutbah, right? Now, let me ask you, how many khutbahs dealt with this particular topic? And I want everyone to answer very sincerely. Out of all the khutbahs that you have heard last year, how much khutbahs talked about this particular topic? Many of them are saying no. And some of you said like 1 to 2. And that is also something that contributes to sadness of this particular reality. I mean, this topic is not getting enough, focus that it deserves. While at the same time, you know what's happening? The people who are talking about this stuff are actually the liberals. I don't wish to name the party, but if you go to certain colleges, there is a certain party, that constantly promotes liberal sexual filth, talking about sex education. And they say that watching pornography is normal. They say that masturbation is normal. They say that sexually perverted activities are normal. And recently, I saw a poster. It was shared by my friend who was in a certain college in Kerala. He sent a poster to me, and it was about, a political party back in, their college, organizing a program talking about sexual ethics, talking about masturbation and pornography. Now, we as Muslims, we are not against engaging in constructive academic intellectual discussions. We are not against that. But these people, do you know what they promote with the label of sex education? They basically promote filth. These people, they basically promote filth. And that is why I very strongly believe that we as an ummah need to stand against such filth, such kind of immorality, immodesty, and immaturity. And that is the introduction to this particular topic. And we'll be directly going ahead with this particular hadith from Al-Ala ibn Ziyad, rahimahullah, who said, a man asked Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, saying, which of the believers is best in Islam? He replied, he from whose tongue and hand the Muslims are safe. He asked, then what is the best jihad? He replied, he who strives against his own self and desires for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He asked, then which of those who migrates, performs hijrah, is the best? He replied, he who strives against his own self and desires for Allah. He again asked, is it something you have said, O Abdullah bin Amr, or Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said? When I say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what are you supposed to say? When I say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what are you supposed to say? Very good. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So type SAW in the chat by saying it at the same time. All right, and he replied, rather Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it. Now this is reported by Ibn Nasr al-Marwazi in Ta'zim Qadr al-Salat, number 639. Okay, I want you guys to read this hadith again in your mind and then say yes in the chat. Read the hadith again in your mind and say yes in the chat. A man asked Abdullah bin Amr bin As, saying, which of the believers is best in Islam? He replied, he from whose tongue and hand the Muslims are safe. He asked, then what is the best jihad? He replied, he who strives against his own self and desires for Allah. He asked, then which of those who migrates, performs hijrah is the best? He replied, he who strives against his own self and desires for Allah. He asked, is it something you have said, O Abdullah bin Amr, or Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said? He said, rather Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it. Okay, very good. Now, this hadith actually deals with three important things. And it is based on three questions. The first question was asked on who the best Muslim is. The second question was on what the best jihad is. And the third question was on what the best hijrah is. All right. Now, the next question I would like to ask you is, I want you guys to close your mind. Close your eyes and imagine the picture of a good Muslim. Imagine the picture of a good Muslim, or imagine the picture of a best Muslim. Okay. Now you have imagined it in your mind. Now I want you to describe it to me. Can everyone type in like what they see when you thought about a good Muslim? What picture came into your mind? Describe it to me in the chat. Okay, one person said best character, genuine, sincere helper, leader to people. Okay, lowering the gaze. Okay, modest. Okay. Now I want you to describe the picture. All right. Okay, the one who speaks softly. Okay, the one who is coming out of the masjid, someone with haya, smiling. Okay, very good. Who speaks no ill, very good. Who smiles, kindness, compassion, taqwa. All right, very good. Okay, now this goes back to the discussion on what the normal picture of what a good Muslim is. All right. Yes. Just like a person said in the chat, the first thing that a person thinks of when he or she thinks about a good Muslim is someone who has a white jubbah, he has a cap on his head, and having a big beard. Right? Like this might be a very common standard picture that might have come into the minds of a lot of people. And this actually goes to the discussion of religiosity. A lot of people think that if they just have beard, if they just have a jubbah, and if they have a Muslim cap, they're the best Muslims. At the same time, when we talk to such people, like we see them engaging in things that are clearly not allowed. We see them talking ill of other people. We see them backbiting. And we see them, for promoting right. They say that they're doing it for the good intentions, with the good intentions, and I hope they have the good intentions. They just strongly criticize people and call them names. They do takfir. They say, you're a mubtadi', you're a kafir, you're a dhal, you're a mudil, you're this and that. They constantly stab people in the back. They don't smile. They think that, smiling is actually wrong. To be a good Muslim means always be serious. The question I would like to ask you is, have you seen such people? Have you seen such people? Now, a very important thing that we need to note here is that we should never, ever judge another person. We should never, ever judge another person. But for the sake of this discussion, we need to really ask ourselves what a good Muslim is. Because when we constantly live in a traditional society, wherein Islam has been practiced for hundreds and hundreds of years, the spiritual, internal nuance aspect of Islam that got to do with tazkiyat and nafs and all these get covered up by traditional culture Islam, wherein which being a Muslim just means, outwardly and ritualistically dressing up, etc. So when we talk about a good Muslim, the answer that was given in this hadith is very, very relevant, and it's amazing. Now, this doesn't mean that a person who, has a beard and has a cap and has a jubba, all of them are like that. Of course, no, 99% of them are amazing people, and I've met a lot of these people. And also your internal reality should, manifest to your external reality, which means the purity of your heart, your level of taqwa, your level of iman should actually manifest with you following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So you having a beard is part of it. You having that appearance is a part of it. There are liberals who say that, only my internal reality needs to be good. I don't need to wear a hijab. My intentions are good. Allah looks at your heart and not looks at your body, etc. Have you heard such, such arguments? It usually comes from feminists and liberals. They say that, I don't need to have a beard. Allah looks at your character, your conduct. Yes, it is true. Allah looks at your character and your conduct. Allah looks at your character and conduct. But what you manifest is a sign of that. What you manifest outside is also a sign of that. All right. And following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ means you have a beard, you wear the hijab, etc. With the hijab, etc. Now, going on, the answer that was given for the question of who the best Muslim is this: he from whose tongue and hand the Muslims are safe. He from whose tongue and hand other Muslims are safe. And this is an amazing, amazing answer. This is an amazing, amazing answer. So if you want to know, or if you want to see whether you're a good Muslim or not, or the best Muslim or not, all you need to check is this: are other Muslims safe from your tongue and your hands? Now, what do I mean by, protecting other Muslims from your tongue? Like, how do you attack another person with the tongue? Okay, attacking with the hand, it makes sense. Like we punch, we smack and all this. How do you attack with the tongue? Yes, verbal attacks, slandering, backbiting, mocking, insulting, and all these things, right? So what this, hadith is basically saying is no person should be harmed by us verbally or physically. Verbally or physically. Now, what do I mean by verbal assaults? Verbal means, insults, scandals, curse words, vulgar language, etc. And physical assaults basically means beating, kicking, smacking, pinching, punching, and all these things. All right. Now, when talking about verbal assaults, there's something, there's another category we need to be talking about. When we talk about physiology, something that we connectedly talk about is also psychology. So verbal assault is psychological assault, and physical assault is a physiological assault. In physical assault, you're damaging another person's physical body, while in verbal assault, you're damaging them psychologically. So the question I would like to ask you is, which is more painful? Which do you think is more painful, verbal assaults or physical assaults? The truth is verbal assaults. The truth is verbal assaults. Now, if somebody punched me and I have a broken hand, it'll probably be fixed in 2 months. I'll just rest and I'll take medicines and medications. It's done. It's done deal. But then if it is a verbal assault, that scar in the brain, that psychological scar will be there in your mind, in your heart. You know for how much years? It's not a few days and it's not a few months, it's not a few years. It's going to be there as long as that memory of that person is going to be there, which can go from 5 years to 10 years to 12 years to 20 years to 40 years. And I've seen cases where in which, people who were attacked verbally in childhood, even after 40 to 50 years, they have never forgiven the other person, and it has affected their life really, really in a damaging manner. And verbal assaults, like, it covers a lot of important things. Saying bad, filthy words and using abusive language, it is strictly prohibited in Islam. It is strictly prohibited in Islam, and sadly, we live in a time where which using such bad, insultful words, words, is very normal today. It's very, very normal. You name it. If you look at every alphabet in the English language, you'll be able to find at least one curse swear word with that particular letter. We have the F word, we have the S word, we have the K word, we have the B word, we have the A word, we have the S word. There are a lot of bad words. The English language is filled with it. And the current paradigm that we are living in, the current situation we are living in, we are constantly bombarded with such information, with such words through the media. Through the media, we live in a time where filthy words have become a norm, while words are exemplified through movies, songs, and games. If you look at the songs that are being released today, it's filled with vulgar language. Like it's unbelievable how people can just sit there and enjoy listening to such stuff. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. If you look at movies, almost all movies that are being released today, they're filled with bad words. They're filled with bad words. If you look at games, bad words, they're also the norm today. They're also the norm today. So this is a very, very sad reality that we live in. And the thing that makes it more sadder is little kids are actually watching this. And little kids, they're listening to these songs. While they may not understand the meanings of these songs, they're just memorizing the things that are being sung in the song. They're just memorizing it and they're singing it. These people, they don't even know what the meaning of what they're saying is. And it's a very, very sad reality. It's a very, very sad reality. Now, back in my college, there was a guy, and ironically, this guy was also from the same political party that I talked earlier. And this guy was like, if you talk to him for 2 minutes, but like 1 minute would just be swear words. All right. 1 minute would just be swear words. All right. If he's saying one sentence, 1/3 of it is going to be swear words. All right. In the Malayalam language, the English language, and I don't know if he's also using it in Hindi. Anyway, so basically the guy uses a lot of filthy words, and this guy's a Muslim. And one day I just to have a discussion, I went to him and I talked to him a lot of important stuff. And one of the things that I said, like, come on, man, like, you're a Muslim, like, why are you using this, right? Why are you using this? And the guy, like, the justifications he was giving was like really strange. Like, he's saying, this is, if you look at the earlier history, the bourgeois class, they did not have, this was actually the raw language of the bourgeois class, the middle class. We got to fight. I don't know what kind of justification that was. All right. Then we had a discussion, and he himself understood that this justification doesn't have, any core or doesn't have any base. All right. And then the next justification he was giving is this. Okay, I use it, but I don't mean it. Have you heard people saying that? I use it, but I don't mean it. I use it, but I don't mean it. A lot of people use the same argument. If you jump out of a building, of a 10-story building, knowingly and unknowingly, you're going to die. All right? Whether you mean it or you don't mean it, you're going to die. And these words, they have clear-cut, direct consequences. These words have clear-cut consequences on your heart, in your spiritual self. And also sociologically, do you think a person is going to respect another person who is always, saying the F word, the S word, the K word, and the B word? No, nobody's going to respect you. And a lot of people, they use such bad words to appear cool, right? And I know a lot of people who do that, right? They use a lot of English, especially in English swear words, just so that, I'm cool, like, I am, part of the trend, like I'm modern, just to show all this, And this is also one of the, huge justifications that I've seen. Whatever it is, if you mean it or if you don't mean it, It is not accepted in Islam. Regardless, it is not accepted in Islam. It is haram. And also, let me ask you a question. Imagine you're just walking in home, right? Like you're just walking in home and your toe, like your legs hit the leg of the table. Does it feel good or bad? It's going to feel really wonderful, right? Like when you're walking and like you're going somewhere, like, like maybe walking a bit faster, you didn't see the table legs and you just hit your legs on the table. I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be able to relate. Okay. Now the question is this. What word would come from your mouth when you hit your legs? Okay, we have a Malayalam word, we have English words. Okay. The thing is, your reflexive language use is actually a reflection of your hearts. A reflection of your hearts. If you're able to say Allahu Akbar, if you're able to say Astaghfirullah, if you're able to say at least, a word that is not a bad word, then that is all right. That is all right. But a lot of people, I've heard this a lot of times. When which, like the first word they say, can you guess what the word is? I don't want you to type it. I don't want you guys to type it. All right. The first word they say is the F word, right? F word and the like all the other words. And like astaghfirullah, like you just get shocked. You just get shocked. Like what? They're just shouting this stuff. And I do remember, I think it was in second year, I was called to NIT Calicut to participate in a debate competition representing the college. And just wait a moment, please. Sorry. Okay, so what I was saying is, I was called to this particular debate, and I do remember the topic as well, was something with regards to environment. Now, I thought it was organized by the authorities of NIT, university, but later on I got to know it was organized by the third year, final year students of the Department of Engineering. Anyway, so we went to the competition and, we gave our presentations. And then after that, the judge was like not a professor there, like he was just, a guy studying in final year. And the guy, like he was giving the judgment decisions. And like, I was shocked. He was using the F word and the S word, like while giving a review of the presentation. Like he's speaking like it's pretty normal, right? And everyone sitting there, like, they're also part of this liberal culture. They're just sitting there, folding their hands and nodding their heads, like saying, yeah, like what he's saying is true. And I'm just shocked, like that guy is using the most inappropriate words. And it's being said in a university that like that's a whole different thing. And everyone is just nodding to it and nobody's opposing it. Like, what has the society come to? So very sadly, using these words have become a norm. It has become a norm, but regardless of whether it's a norm or not a norm, whether it's, completely opposed by society or accepted by society, Islam is very clear on that. And what is Islamic stance on such words? It is clearly haram or halal. It is clearly haram. It is clearly haram. If you're a person who uses such haram words, just know that it's affecting your heart. Just know that it's affecting your mind. Just know that it's demoralizing you as a person. And it's going to have an effect on you, so much so that you won't even be conscious of the fact that you're using curse words and swear words, right? I know parents who use swear words in front of the little children. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So we got to be very careful with regards to these things. The Prophet ﷺ said, a believer is never a person who scoffs at others, calls them names, or utters vulgar and obscene phrases. This should never come from a mu'min. This should never come from a Muslim. So from today onwards, I want you guys to take a decision that you won't say these swear words consciously, at least consciously. If you're a person like who's been constantly using such words, okay, it'll take some time for you to change it. But at least consciously, I want you to give me a word that you will try your best not to use it. If you say, like, if you promise me that, say yes in the chat. Or at least say inshallah. Say inshallah that you will try your best. Say inshallah that you will try your best. Okay. Now, a true believer is a decent person who uses polite phrases when he talks. Now, what do I mean by polite phrases? What do I mean by polite phrases? Does anyone know what is meant by polite phrases? Polite phrases basically means, for example, let me give an example. Imagine that you went to a restaurant and the waiter, they bought you, the food. What would you say to the waiter? What would you say to, yes, you would say thank you, right? You would say thank you. Or would you just ignore him? No, you're supposed to say thank you. When you go to a patrol station, and the serviceman, he fills up petrol to your bike or your car, you have to say thank you. Like, this is a very polite thing. If he's a Muslim, if you know he's a Muslim, say Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, and it's a dua. It's a dua, right? If it's a polite dua, it's a powerful dua, and duas are answered. Allah hears your duas, right? And this is like one of the things that I've seen. One good positive thing about the Western culture. Now, the Western culture is filled with the filth of liberalism, secularism, but there are a few positive aspects to this, and one of it is, such kind of polite language. I've seen them using a lot of polite language. Their mu'amalat, the way they interact. I've seen a lot of polite things being said. Thank you, please, and all these different phrases should be used by us. Now, I don't mean we need to use those English words, but whatever language you're from, try to incorporate such polite phrases into your words or into your language, right? And in Arabic too, like, there are a lot of beautiful phrases that are being used. All right, so try to use polite phrases. Now, there's another thing: criticizing. Is criticizing good? Is criticizing another person good? Okay, so a lot of people said no. Some people said depends. Imagine this. You got married and you had kids, and one day, your kids came back home. Like, probably, I'm just giving a very extrapolated example. Okay, this is not going to happen to any of you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all. But your child came back with a packet of drugs. All right, with a packet of drugs. And you found out that he's been using drugs. All right. Now, would you just stay there and, use polite phrases? MashaAllah, my child, you have been using drugs. Wonderful. Good job. I appreciate it. And you pat him on the back. Very good. Very good. Is that what you would say? Obviously no, right? Obviously no. Obviously there, like, you need to criticize him. But this criticism should be done in a constructive manner. All right, this should be done in a constructive manner. Let me give you another example to show what destructive criticism and constructive criticism is. Imagine that there's a small baby in your home. Okay, I'm talking about little toddlers, maybe 2 to 3 years old. Does anyone have such kids in the home? 2 to 3 year olds, at least 2 to 5 year olds. 2 to 5 year olds, so kids that are still walking and learning about the world. And these kids, these are like most innocent age. This is the most innocent age. And the problem is, it's not a problem. Like, these kids are very creative, but they don't know how to channel this creativity. So often, they take color pens, sketch pens, paints, and everything. They just maybe come to your room and draw on the wall. Has this happened to anyone? Some little kid came to your room and drew on your wall. So you have two choices here. All right. You can every day, subhanallah. you might have a lot of patience. And anyway, so this kid comes to your room and starts drawing on the wall. So you have two choices. The number one choice is this: you call the child to you and then you smack him on the head and you throw him out of the room and call him all different names, like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Are you stupid? Are you mad? I painted this wall 2 weeks ago. I paid $1,000 to paint it. What have you done? Now I have got a lot of jobs to do. I don't have time for this and time for that. You have destroyed my day. You have destroyed my life. I damn you to hellfire for eternity. You could give them an entire speech criticizing him inside out, right? And the guy, he doesn't even know why he's being shouted at, and he's just confused. He's just confused, and the next day onwards, he's not even going to touch a sketch pen. He's going to have touch penophobia or something, right? Anyway, so that is the first choice. The The second choice is this. You can call the child, you can appreciate him for his artistic, creative ability. You can tell him, mashallah, you have like, that drawing is beautiful. But you know what would be better? If you drew on a piece of paper or, this notebook, it'll be much better. And you can give him an activity. You know what? Take this sketch pen. Can you draw an elephant for me? Can you draw a cat for me? And give him a task. And then, let them, do it on the, notebook. All right. Appreciate their artistic ability. And, also tell them that drawing on the wall, like, it's not that good. And, if it is, like, there are two ways. All right. I don't want to go to the tarbiyah, but, just to give you, one more tip. If you're talking to boys, tell them, like, you have grown up, you're a very, mature. Okay, by the way, technophobia is not a real term, all right? I just formed it, amidst the session. You don't, search up in a dictionary for technophobia. Anyway, so what I was saying is, like, tell them that, drawing on the walls is not good, and, tell them the consequences of this particular action, and let them, draw on the notebook. So we have two examples here. Should we choose, the first choice or the second choice? Should we choose the first choice or the second choice? What would you choose? That is a question. The second choice, right? The second choice is what we need to be. Okay, somebody said first. That is very concerning, man. Okay, anyway, the second choice is, the choice that, you should be selecting. And like, this is the cause of parenting failure, especially with many teenagers. The parents, they just constantly criticize, they just constantly like compare, like from the morning, like the time the guy has opened his eyes and woken up, they say, like, why don't you clean up your bed? Why don't you clean up your room? Why don't you be like your brother? Why don't you be like your cousin? Why don't you be like your sister? Why don't you be like this and that, right? And they give a lot of different examples, and they criticize, like, why have you done this and why haven't you done that, right? And like, they give you trauma, like literal trauma. Do you think the teenagers like it? Like, when they've been criticized? Obviously, no person in the entire history of mankind has never liked being criticized destructively. So it's very harmful. And also, the parents, if you're a parent who's comparing your child, like, I feel sad for your children. Because comparing your children can actually initiate or trigger inferiority complexes in your little children. Even after they've grown up, they're just constantly be going to compare themselves. So this is very, very problematic. If you're a person with teenage children, make sure you talk to them in a very good manner. Otherwise, they're going to turn into your arch enemies after years, right? And the way we see Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam treating children, it's so beautiful. Let me give an example. Anas ibn Malik, rahimahullah, radiallahu anhu, he used to be a little kid, and he used to, be with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam for about 10 to 11 years. All right. Now, Anas ibn Malik, radiallahu anhu, he used to observe the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and, in a narration, Anas ibn Malik, radiallahu anhu, he says that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, like in these 10 years, he has never scolded me. And that is amazing. Right? And there's a very beautiful example. So one day the Prophet ﷺ wanted to get something, like it was emergency, and Anas ibn Malik, the Prophet ﷺ told Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, yeah, Anas, go there and take it and come fast. Like, this is an emergency, you got to go there and take something and bring it to me very fast. Now Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, like, he's a very small kid, and you know how kids are, right? And these kids, they get distracted very fast. Now, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, like, he set out to get the thing, but while going to that place, he saw a lot of kids playing. Now, Anas ibn Malik, like, he's a kid, he also wants to play. Like, this is innately, like, he wants to play, right? Kids want to play. So the guy, he goes out to play with the kids, and he forgets completely about what the Prophet ﷺ sent him for. Now the Prophet ﷺ is waiting and waiting. Now, if the thing was also for another person, like, everyone there, like, they're also waiting. Like, where's Anas ibn Malik? Like, we're waiting for the stuff. Where is he? We thought, like, he's going to come back. Everyone is concerned. So the Prophet ﷺ himself, he set out to find Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, and he goes. And he searches a lot and finally finds Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu playing with the kids. Now, I want to put you in the same situation. Imagine that it is you and it is your child who is playing in the field. You send him to take something emergency, like do it very fast, and everyone is waiting. And you searched up for him. You're anxious, like where's this kid? You search, like he went in the morning, and you're searching and searching, and you found him in the evening playing in the fields. How would you react to this little child? How would you respond to him? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It's going to be Salatul Janazah, right? Salatul Janazah, right? Khalas, right? Is like that day is going to be a traumatic day for the little child, for a lot of people, right? But the way the Prophet ﷺ dealt with it is so beautiful. He called Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu, he kissed him on his cheeks. And that narration is so beautiful, and this shows the akhlaq of the Prophet ﷺ. It shows the akhlaq of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and that is our role model. That is our role model. That is how we should be dealing with kids. And there's a good book written by Dale Carnegie on criticism. It's a very good book. I would highly recommend you to read it. It's not basically about criticism, but it covers a lot of different topics. I think criticism is talked in chapter number 2. Now, criticizing another person actually leads them to self-justify their actions. Now, human beings, we are really good at justifying ourselves. We are really good at justifying ourselves. Like whatever we do, whatever negative things we do, we justify ourselves. We justify ourselves. And when you criticize another person, their justification ability, their justification power actually increases. Their justification power actually increases. There's a particular quote, that I usually tell parents who come for counseling with their little kids. I tell them, the most strictest parents raise the best liars. The most strictest parents raise the best liars. Like these young kids, they have mastered the art of lying. Because the first time they talk the truth in front of their parent, they got beaten up so bad. They got beaten up so bad now that they don't even say the truth in front of their parents, and they make up a lot of lies so that they can cover up the things that they have done. Subhanallah. And these people, they grow to become pathological liars. They grow to become pathological liars, right? Now, criticizing a person leads them to self-justify their actions. And the Prophet ﷺ used to deal with people by hikmah. Let me give another example. One day, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to give me permission to commit zina. Now, zina, like it's sab'ul mubiqat, like one of the biggest crimes, like one of the biggest sins. Like he's coming to the masjid and asking the Prophet ﷺ permission to commit zina. Subhanallah. I want you to put, the same thing to the current situation. Imagine that, there's a board meeting in the masjid, when with the masjid secretary and everyone is there, like they're having a meeting, and a man comes and asks, Ya Maulavi, whoever is the topmost person there, asks him, can you give me permission to use some drugs in the corner of this masjid? Can you give me some permission to use, or to commit zina? How do you think they're going to deal with that guy? How do you think that guy is going to be in sakarat al-maut, right? Like he's just going to be thrown out. He's going to be thrown out of the masjid. But the Prophet ﷺ, he called the person and he said them, like he talked to him in a very rational manner. He told the man, would you like it if somebody came and did that with your sister, with your mother, with your grandmother, with your aunt, etc.? And the man said no. He said no to every answer. And then he understood the seriousness of this. And then the man later said that zina became the most repulsive, the most aversive, the most disgusting thing in my mind. I never even thought about committing that crime after that. Subhanallah. So the Prophet ﷺ was actually dealing with that person with hikmah. So that is very important. The way we frame our words, the way we convey things, it needs to be done in the right manner. It needs to be done in the right manner. And don't humiliate another person. Like a lot of people have this habit of humiliating and calling them names, you fatty, etc. Right? They use a lot of these insultful, humiliating words. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited using humiliating words against even a sinner, right? Using nicknames and all these things, like it's not good. And some people might use it like as a joke, right? You might call another person a specific name, and you might have you might use it as a joke, and they might also laugh with you. They might also laugh with you and smile at you. But let me tell you this, it's really hurting them. is really hurting them in the heart. In the heart, like it's real. Even if there are people like who seems very tough, rough outside, who like you're sure that it's not going to affect them, it still affects them in their heart. It still affects them. And there was a specific example, and this example like was mind shocking for me. It was a counseling case that came from Calicut, and the guy was 33 years old or 31 years old, if I remember, was about 1 year ago. And this guy's married, I think he has about 2 kids or 3 kids. And he called one day, and we talked, and his problem was this: like his life is pretty much messed up. He's having anxiety attacks, trauma, and all these things. And the root of this, like he told me, the root of this, like this started when like he was studying in college. He was studying in a particular college in Calicut itself, was doing his bachelor's in commerce, and he used to be a very good kid. Like, he used to study well academically and everything. And he used to never copy in exams. But during the final exam, what basically happened was, like, he was writing the exam, but by mistakenly he looked at another paper, right? He looked at another paper, and the teacher caught this. Now the teacher, called him up, like, what are you saying? Like, why are you doing this? And the teacher also knows, like, this is a good kid, he has good marks. And finally, he gives the paper back and tells him, okay, this is not a child, like he's about, I think 18, 19, 20 years old, right? So he goes back to the, his bench, and he continues writing the exam. Now, after the exam, when the exam was over, his friends came up and says to him, oh, so you have been doing this for the past 1 year. So this is how you have been getting good marks and everything. Like, they were just joking, obviously. And he also laughed with them. But what basically happened was like this literally harmed him. Like it just it left a scar on him psychologically. Now, even after, 8 years, like he's working in a specific company. I don't know what position he was working at, but he was working in a company. And even after that, like it's been affecting him. He's literally been affecting him. His family life is spoiled. He's not even able to maintain eye contact while talking to another person. And this memory still haunts him. This memory still haunts him. For a lot of us, it might seem like, why? Like, just forget it. Like, why is this such a big problem? Like, what is the concern here? But no, you may never know how deeply your words are affecting another person. Let me tell you this, and especially if you're dealing with your parents. If you're dealing with your parents, if you're a person who is speaking in a very rough manner to your parents, let me tell you this: I have no respect for you. I have no respect for a person who's talking back to his mother, who's talking back to his father. And your fathers, your mothers, like they may not express this, especially the fathers. They may not say that they're hurt. They might like just like act like they're ignoring it. Mothers, like they may not, say something back. They may not say that your words have hurt them. But I know mothers who cry late in the night because of a small thing that their child told him, told to her. Like this is because of the love they have for you. They have deep love for you, so much so that even the little things that you say hurt them. And this is actually a nature of the love. If you love another person very deeply, especially like imagine you're married and you have a wife, like if you love her really, really deeply, and she says something that is like mildly hurtful, it is really going to hurt you. It's like deeply going to hurt you. Or example of the wives, who love their husbands really deeply. Even the little things that their husbands say is really going to hurt you. It's really, really going to hurt them, right? So we got to be really, really careful about the words that we say. Even some things that we think is a joke, it's not going to be a joke for them. It's not going to be a joke for them, especially with regards to appearance. If you're insulting another person, and I've mostly seen this in the females, like I've seen a lot of them, insulting another person. I'm not saying this misogynistically, but I'm just talking about counseling experience and the things that people say. Why are you, insulting another person for his appearance? Allah created him in that manner. So how dare you have the audacity to insult the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So we got to be very, very careful of each and every word that we say. Each and every word that we say. And speaking unfavorably of others actually lawful in certain cases. Like there are 4 cases in fiqh. I think there are much more cases with regards to ikhtilaf in certain madhahibs. But generally speaking, it is allowed to speak unfavorably of another person, declaring a witness unreliable in case of a law in court. Second one is exposing one or more narrators of the Prophet ﷺ hadith if any of them is accurate, speaking frankly about a Muslim when marriage is involved, in matters of financial or real estate, trust or employment. So in these cases, It is allowed to speak unfavorably, honestly and truthfully about another person. Otherwise, you'd be causing much more harm. Imagine that, somebody came to you and, to ask to you about a certain man, and you know that that man, like, he goes out and does a lot of bad, weird stuff. He engages in drugs and all these things. But then you think, oh, I should not backbite. I should say good about him. Should you be saying good about him, or should be saying the truth about him? Should you be saying the truth about him, or good about him? The truth. Otherwise, you're literally destroying another girl's life, another person's life. So there are certain, situations where in which you have to speak the truth, even if it is speaking unfavorably of another person. Also, use the tongue for spreading positivity. Okay, use the tongue for spreading positivity. Appreciate another person. Like, for us, like, it's very hard to appreciate. I don't know if it is just with the Desi culture, the Indian culture. It's very hard to just appreciate. It's very, very hard to appreciate. And I've actually experienced this. I was giving a presentation, and like, there was a mixed audience. Like, there are people from Bahrain, Qatar, there are Arabs, there are Americans, then there are Malayalis, there are Indians, everyone, right? So after the presentation, like, the Arabs, they would come and say, MashaAllah, Barakallah Fik, Allahumma atik al-afiyah, you have done a good job and everything. The Americans would also, or the Western people, they would also, brilliant, you have done this and that, like, it's amazing, etc. Malayalis, they don't usually come up and do it, but if they come up and do it, it's only going to be for criticism. Like, they'll say, that was good, but, like, they would use the term but, and then they would give an entire analysis and literary criticism of your presentation. Now, of course, it's always good to constructively criticize, but then, like, there's a place, and there's a proper context on how to do it, right? Is there, like, I've seen a lot of husbands too, like, if they appreciate their wife for something, just to balance it up, they have to also say something bad. All right. Like, it's pretty funny. Like, say, your food is amazing, but your character is bad. Like, there was a certain guy in college, like, I heard this in a conversation. They said, I don't know whether I should be saying it in Malayalam, but I will say it in Malayalam and then I'll convert it. Like, it was really funny. I just laughed. It was in the library, I think. He said, dress nannayittundu, pakshe mogam poi. It was really funny. Do you know what it means? Like, it means, like, your dress is amazing, man, but your face, man, like, it's gone. It's pretty ugly. Like, what is the use of appreciating another person and then destroying his ego? Like, that's just like, pushing him up and just throwing him out of the 10th floor. Right? So anyway, appreciate another person. Appreciate another person as much as you can. Appreciate your spouses, appreciate your brothers, appreciate your sisters, appreciate your parents, appreciate your friends, and be genuine in your appreciation. You don't just go up to another person, like, very simply and say, wow, you're amazing, you're fantastic, you're fabulous, you are brilliant, you are fantastic, you are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and then you appreciate him for no reason whatsoever. That is not called as appreciation. That's called as trolling. All right. There's a difference between trolling and appreciation. So when you're appreciating, be genuine, and then don't overdo it. All right. Don't overdo it. And the fact is, human beings actually love appreciation, regardless of how much you deny this. A lot of people, they say, I don't want to be appreciated, I don't like being appreciated, etc. But intrinsically, human beings love being appreciated. Like, it's there inside our hearts. That's how Allah created us. Right? So appreciating another person is a very, very good thing. It's a very, very good thing, right? So, and this is also there in Dale Carnegie's book. It's titled How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a good book. But in the end, like, I won't recommend to follow all of Dale Carnegie's, ideologies. He was speaking from a secular background. But then, this book has a lot of, good and useful things. Okay. Now, coming to the physical assaults. Now, this is obvious. You're not supposed to attack another person physically. You're not allowed to attack another person physically unless it's for a just reason. A just reason. It was narrated that Abu Sirma, rahimahullah, he said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever harms a Muslim, Allah will harm him. Whoever causes hardship to a Muslim, Allah will cause hardship to him. Subhanallah. So if you harm another person, this is not just about physical assaults. Verbally or physically, you can expect it to return back. And this is not karma, but this is, the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right, don't connect it to the karma. The karma, the ideology itself is based on shirk and kufr. All right. Now, like this is very clear. The hadith is very clear. If you harm another person, it will return to you. It will return to you. Even if you think that, like it's been long lost, gone. Like, I attacked another person verbally like 10 years ago. You still need to have that expectation of fear. It's going to return back to you, man. Allah will harm you unless you do tawbah. Unless you do tawbah. And like this is a very, very scary hadith. A famous tabi'i commentator, Sayyidina Mujahid rahimahullah, he said, those in hell will be afflicted with itch. They will scratch their bodies till the bone of one of them will be exposed due to skin and flesh coming off. It'll be called out to him, "Oh, so and so, do you feel the pain due to it?" And he will reply, "Yes." The one calling out will say, "You used to hurt Muslims. This is your punishment for that." As an Ihya Ulumuddin. And like it's a very, very deep, it's a very, very deep narration. A very, very deep narration. Imagine you scratching yourself with itch so much so that blood starts oozing out of your skin, so much so that you itch so much so that your skin is spoiled and it comes off. It comes off, it tears off. It tears off, and then you continue scratching. You can't stop the scratching, and you're screaming with pain, and tears of blood are coming out of your eyes, and you're just wailing and weeping, and you're continuing the scratch, you're continuing the itch so much so that you scratch through your flesh. You scratch through your flesh, and your flesh is coming out, and it's deeply painful. It's deeply painful. Then you scratch and scratch and scratch until you're scratching your bones. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is your punishment for hurting another person. So each time you hurt another individual, this analogy should come in your mind. This analogy should come in your mind. So think about it deeply. Whenever you assault another person, knowingly or unknowingly, whether it's kids, even while talking to kids, when we're talking to your parents, and with parents, like punishment is going to be multitude times greater than this. So be very, very careful about how you deal with people. Be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. And if you do all the Islamic rituals to the letter, if you go for Salah 5 times a day, if you go for Hajj, if you give Zakah, if you fast in the month of Ramadan, but if other Muslims are not safe from your tongue and your hands, you are not a good Muslim breed. All right? So if you want to be a good Muslim, also focus on developing your akhlaq. I'm not saying that, praying 5 times a day in Zakah and Sawm and Hajj are not important things. These are very important. Arkanul Islam, pillars of Islam, very, very important. But that's not it. Your personality, your character also needs to be at that level of spirituality, right? Okay, now another question I'd like to ask you is this. When you think of jihad, what image comes into your mind? When you think about jihad, what picture comes into your mind? Like who comes into your mind? Or like what kind of things comes to your mind? War, Afghanistan, battle, death, Hitler? Okay, that's strange. So, like, most probably a guy who watches BBC News, the first thing that comes into our mind would be some guy with a turban and some Islamic symbol with a Quran in his right hand, and a rocket launcher on AK-47 and an artillery bomb on his left hand, saying Allahu Akbar and screaming, right? And screaming. Like this is like a typical picture that comes into people's minds when we say the word jihad. But like, what is the meaning of jihad? Does anyone know the meaning of jihad? What is the meaning of jihad? What is the meaning of jihad? Jihad means struggle. Jihad basically means struggle. Now, when we go back to that particular hadith, the third question, the answer for the third question and the fourth question, the second question and the third question. The second question was, what is the best jihad? The third question was, what is the best hijrah? The answer that was given to both of them is the same answer. And the answer is this: he who strives against his own self and desires for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something very, very powerful. This is something very, very powerful. Let me read this answer again. If you have also read it, say yes. He who strives against his own self and desires for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's actually a very, very powerful statement. If you finish reading it, say yes in the chat. Now, jihad is basically the most misunderstood term of the 21st century. The most misunderstood term of the 21st century. Right? Jihad basically means struggle. Jihad basically means struggle. Right? When I'm teaching you, I'm basically doing jihad. Right? I'm basically doing jihad. Like amidst all my classes and everything, like I just schedule a time to teach. So I'm basically struggling. Which means I'm doing jihad. You guys, you may be traveling, you may be having a lot of different works. And amidst that, you're sitting here and listening to the class for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're also doing jihad. Right? Jihad basically means struggling. Jihad basically means struggling. And there are different types of jihad. Now, helping your parents is jihad, giving charity is jihad, fasting is jihad, forbidding evil is jihad. These are all different kinds of jihad. So jihad is an umbrella term. Right? And there's actually a narration in a Sahih Hadith. Once the Prophet ﷺ was returning from a battle, and he said to the companions that they are now going to a bigger jihad. And everyone was like scared, anxious. We're coming from a battle, and battle is not easy. And this particular battle, it was very hard. And then the Prophet ﷺ is telling them, you're going to a bigger jihad. Like everyone was shocked. And they asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is this jihad? And the Prophet ﷺ said, it is jihad an-nafs. Jihad an-nafs basically means struggling against yourself, struggling against your own desires. It's not an easy thing, especially living at a time wherein it's following desires and hedonism and hypersexuality. We live in that particular time. So you fighting against yourself is very hard. It's very, very hard. Right? It's very, very hard. Now, the meaning of jihad basically means struggle. But sadly, we see a lot of these news channels twisting the meaning. Today, the word jihad is consciously misinterpreted and twisted by political agencies for their own agendas and propagandas. And then we have, organizations like the Islamic State and, all these different terrorist organizations who are very well, clearly politically motivated, or very clearly funded by the Western political power structures. They use the Islamic terminologies. They use Islamic verses, the Quranic verses and a hadith to justify what they're doing. Absolutely no. Harming another person and unjustly killing them is not jihad. It's not jihad. It is actually a dhulm. You're actually doing dhulm. Destroying cities and bombing them unjustly is not jihad. It's not jihad. And the sad reality is, like today, a lot of Islamophobes, they really don't know what the meaning of jihad is. They just connect everything with jihad. Have you guys heard about love jihad? Have you guys heard about love jihad? Love jihad, like this is senseless. Like, what do you mean love jihad? Like, even premarital love, it's haram in Islam. And then you say love jihad, right? And then there is a narcotics jihad. Like, this is very funny. Like, when did drugs and alcohol became halal in Islam, right? There is a narcotics jihad, there is a land jihad, there is a UPSC jihad. I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with shawarma jihad. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, what are you saying? Like, connecting every single word with jihad, like that is utter stupidity, right? So as Muslims, we need to spread awareness on this particular issue. It's very important that we educate other people and tell them what the real meaning of jihad is. And also, defending the deen is jihad, all right? The warfare, like that, was also part of jihad. And it was, the earlier battles were between haqq and batil. But today, the battle is between Islam and a lot of these, ideologies, atheism, liberalism, feminism, LGBTQ activism, etc. Right? And I think it is written in Dr. Andrew Haywood's book. There's a book on the introduction of political philosophies and ideologies. In that book, he clearly says the upcoming war is between the West and Islam. By the West, he means, all these postmodern philosophies, right? Now, engaging in intellectual battles and defending the deen, it is a very important jihad. So, one thing that I would say is, like, if you guys are not able to directly engage in such things, like with regards to conversation, debates, and discussions, at least support the people who are doing it. There are a lot of good pages. There are a lot of amazing da'is who are doing it back in Kerala, and also, across the world. Support them, like, their videos, subscribe them, share their works, and you're also being part of this movement. So try to do it as much as possible, inshallah. And the greatest jihad, I said, as I mentioned earlier, it is the fight against the self. The fight against the self. And self-accountability and self-control plays a vital role in the formation of a pious character. And as I mentioned earlier, today we live in a world where we are faced with onslaught of temptation and desires every single day, every single day. So fighting against itself, like, it has become very, very hard, but we got to do it. We got to do it, right? Now, this is an ayah in Surah Al-Nazi'at. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. And it's a beautiful ayah. It's a beautiful ayah. It basically says, as for him who feared to stand before his Lord and he restrained himself from his desires, then paradise will be his refuge. If you stop yourself from committing something haram because of the fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me, Allah will give you something much, much better in the dunya. Much, much better in the dunya and also in the akhirah. Also in the akhirah. In the akhirah, you're going to get Jannatul Firdaus. You're going to get Jannatul Firdaus, and it's beautiful. So have this in your mind. Whenever you're doing something, like you have that tendency to do something haram, whenever you want to say something haram, like that curse word and the swear word is just like you just want to blast it off from your mouth because you're very angry, remember this ayah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. If I stop myself from doing this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give me something that is much, much better. Much, much better. When you want to look at haram, when you are in that hormonal high, when you want to look at haram, when you know that nobody in the world is watching me, I'm having all the opportunity to commit something haram, think to yourself, my Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me, and I'm going to stay, away from this. I'm going to control myself. I'm going to control my desires. If you do that, Allah will give you something far, far better. Far, far better. If you're stuck in, some premarital haram relationship, which is a big problem in the society, and sadly, it's not even talked about much. It is not getting the attention that it deserves. And if you're stuck in such relationships, understand that if you cut it off, if you stop it, if you escape from it, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you leave it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will give you someone who is much, much better. Allah will give you someone who is much, much better, right? So whenever you are having that tendency to engage in something haram, think to yourself this ayah, remember this ayah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. And this is a hadith. أشد الجهاد جهاد الهوى من منع نفسه هواها فقد استراح من الدنيا وبلائها وكان محفوظا ومعافا من أذاها. The most difficult jihad is the struggle against the desire. Whoever can prevent himself from his desires will be relieved from the world and its trials, and he'll be protected and safe from its arms. Now, just a clarification, I'm not sure this was a particular hadith or a phrase of a scholar, but try to find a reference for it. But this is something very authentic, and it's a very, very deep quote. The most difficult jihad is the struggle against the desire. There is nothing much harder than that. There is nothing harder than that. All right. So whoever can prevent himself from his desires will be relieved from the world and its trials. And some people think that if they just commit sins, they can do tawbah after that. But who said that your life is guaranteed? Who said that your life is guaranteed? Stop deluding yourself. And also, each sins that you commit is going to return back to you. Of course, in the akhirah, it's going to be there, but even maybe in the dunya. Maybe there was a huge blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to give you, but He took it away because of your sins, because of what you committed. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to reward you with an amazing job, opportunity, but Allah took it away. Allah stopped it because you committed something that is haram. You saw something that is haram. Imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to give you the best spouse who fits with you and is compatible with you, but that blessing was stopped and cut off because of something that you did. So say astaghfirullah al-azim and seek tawbah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from committing sins, because it will destroy you. It will completely destroy you. We live in a hypersexualized world. Where pornography addiction and masturbation addiction, like, it has become very normal. And there are agencies, there are clear-cut social, geopolitical agencies that are trying to promote this. For example, the political party that I mentioned earlier. They're having these huge programs in the name of sex education, promoting homosexuality, masturbation, pornography, and all this filth. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Allah al-musta'an. What are these people doing? And they say that pornography watching it's normal. It's normal. That is messed up. That is totally messed up. And the sad fact is, even the world of psychology, if there are students of psychology here, Like if you open the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychology, the 5th edition, and if you go to the, if you just surf through it, you won't find the issue of pornography addiction in that. You won't find the issue of pornography addiction that it's not even considered as an addiction, even though millions of people are suffering from it. Even though millions of people are suffering from it, we'll try to have a specific session for this particular topic, inshallah, because this needs to be talked at in depth. I've actually built a very comprehensive course on this, covering all different aspects of this, talking from a spiritual, psychological, political, social, and philosophical aspect. So the topic is much more deeper than that, but we'll cover it when the time comes, inshallah. And with regards to masturbation addiction too, if you go to a liberal psychologist, if you go to a secular psychologist, and if you ask them, is masturbation okay? What answer are they going to give you? What answer are they going to give you? What answer do you think they're going to give you? If you ask them if masturbation is all right, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say it's normal, it's natural, it's sexual exploration. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. If you skim through the research papers, and I've done that, I've done a critical study of this topic, and the thing is, the research reports that say, it'll prevent prostate cancer and everything, it's not very well scientifically based. It's not well scientifically based, and it's a very, very sad reality. It's a very, very sad reality. Anyway, we'll cover that when the session comes. But what we need to understand is it's very problematic. These behaviors can literally destroy you. Can literally destroy you. The amount of people addicted to this stuff is staggeringly huge and shocking. And the fitna through sexual desire is the most prevalent in the Muslim society, yet it's the most least talked about, as we mentioned earlier. It's the most least talked about. The physiological consequences of watching this haram filth, even for 1 second, it's very, very huge. It's very, very huge. There are a lot of scientific studies proving this. There are, magnetic resonance imaging, scan of the brain that clearly shows how damaging it is to the brain. If you research more about the Coleridge effect and the different psychological consequences of this particular field, you'll literally be shocked. You'll literally be shocked. You'd almost want to, pluck out your eyes so that you can protect yourself from watching such stuff. That's how harmful this is to your brain. That's how harmful this is to your brain. So be very, very careful and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. And you watching something haram, that is zina. You're fornicating. You're fornicating with your eyes. You're fornicating with your eyes. So be very, very careful of the things that you see. And today, marriage has become very, very hard. And these natural tendencies in your body, whether you're a man or a woman, it's pretty natural, it's pretty normal to have those sexual feelings and tendencies. But at the same time, the way to channel these tendencies is through marriage. It's through marriage, and that is the halal door that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made. But sadly today, marriage has become very, very difficult. Marriage has become very, very difficult, and the expectations have increased. Materialism has increased. If you want to get married, how much would you have to spend? In the least, I'm talking about minimum. Today, if you want to get married, how much will you have to spend in the minimum? How many lakhs? 5 lakhs is the starting. Then it goes 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs. It just keeps increasing. It just keeps increasing. You're throwing a massive party, with dances, music, and whatever filth that you're including in it. SubhanAllah, the society has made it very difficult. Very difficult. I participated in a marriage of a friend here in Egypt, and it was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was very beautiful. You know what he did? The nikah was in the masjid. They did the nikah. Everyone was given a book and dates and a chocolate. Khalas, it's done deal. It's finished. It's finished, and they go back home. They enjoy their life. They live very happily. I don't understand. What is the use of you spending millions of dollars for the sake of showing off your wealth? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is against Islam. This is against Islam. If you want to put, if you want to utilize this money, at least invest that kind of money in your marriage. Go for trips together. That is a good thing in helping build bonds. Buy gifts for each other. You can invest that particular money in a lot of halal ways. But then you are so obsessed over spending this money to showing off. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So there are a lot of cultural sophistications when it comes to the issue of marriage. And the halal door that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made has become very, very hard and inaccessible to the youth, so much so that they are being pushed to open the doors of haram. When the door of halal is closed, the door of haram opens. So we've got to be very careful. And as parents, it's mandatory that we facilitate marriage for little children, for our young kids. It's very, very important. It's very, very important. And, with regards to pornography addiction, I've actually made a highlight on my Instagram page for those people who would like to learn more, can go into that and read through the slides. I think there are about 200 slides. It's very comprehensive and it covers different aspects of this particular topic. And the first slide covers the psychological side of this particular topic. And the second slide talks about the theological side of this particular topic. So the people who want to learn more can go there. And if we get time, we'll try to have a specific session on this particular topic. And a great scholar, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, Ibn Qayyim Jawziyya, like he's actually the student of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and they're both brilliant scholars, one of the most brilliant scholars in the history of Islamic intellectual tradition. And if you're a person who likes to learn Islamic psychology, tazkiyat an-nafs, about ruh, about soul, etc., Ibn al-Qayyim is actually a good reference. Da' wa Dawa is actually a good book of Ibn al-Qayyim. You can start with Da' wa Dawa, and then go on reading multiple books of Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah. A lot of these books have been translated to English as well. The Inner Dimensions of Salah, I think that is one book. It's actually a beautiful book. Highly recommended to read his books. It's very simple language, very understandable. Now, he identified a number of different prophetic and Quranic approaches to controlling our minds and our hearts in order to help us on our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In his book, Iddat al-Sabirin, he puts forth a number of strategies for reminding ourselves of the knowledge and beliefs that we hold, particularly in the face of temptation of desire. So what he's saying is, if you have desires, just remember these three things. Remember that Allah's countless blessing upon you, and your disobedience will erect a barrier between you and them, which I basically mentioned earlier. Like your blessings can be stopped from you if you do sins, if you commit sins. And remember that through you fulfilling desires and attainment of temporary pleasure, you will lose out on goodness both in this world and the next. So the effect is not just on this world, it's also in the akhirah. It's also in the akhirah. So be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. And remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised to replace what you leave for his sake with something much, much better. As also mentioned earlier. So if you have the temptation to commit something haram, say to yourself that if I stay away from this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give me something far, far better. So read this multiple times, take a screenshot of it, and put this in your mind, place this in your mind, remember this as often as possible. Controlling desires is the path to win in this life and in the next. It is going to be very hard. As I mentioned earlier, jihad in-nafs is the greatest jihad. It is not going to be easy. It is not easy to protect your eyes. It's not easy to protect your hands. It's not easy to protect your legs. It's not easy to protect your body and your mind from committing haram, because we live in a haramized world. Like we live in a world where haram has become so normal, and halal has become so strange. If you engage in halal, you're seen as strange. If you engage in haram, it's seen as you going with the trend. So always remember Allah's countless blessing upon you whenever there are opportunities that are opening up for you to commit haram, and know the seriousness of each sins. The small sins that you think that doesn't cause much harm, it's very, very damaging. It's very, very destructive. It's very, very dissoluteful. It'll leave you void and devoid of spiritual bliss in your heart. If you want to have khushu' in salah, you got to protect your eyes, man. You got to protect your thoughts. You got to protect your mind. You got to protect your heart. Protect it from all the romantic filth that are outside there, out there. Protect yourself from all this filth, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. Each and every second of you being patient, Allah will definitely reward you. Allah will definitely reward you. So make dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all this filth. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us strong in the straight path. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إننا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقرب إلى حبك. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Wafi. It was a very beautiful session. Now, for the conclusion, I would like to invite Sister Sophia.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
That was an amazing and wonderful session, mashallah. Jazakallah khair, Sir Wafi, for this beautiful session. Jazakallah khair, Sister Dina, for moderating, and Brother Abdul Rahman for beautiful recitation, and Sister Dina for wonderful introduction. Jazakallah khair to every participant who have gathered here and attended the session with patience. The session was really an eye-opening session. The Almighty also created in humans desires and gave them an ability to control those desires according to divine law, or to turn them loose and follow them blindly. Allah says, "Among you are some who desires with this world, and among you are some who desire the hereafter. So may Allah keep us in a right path and make our intentions pure. We should desire for hereafter because the world will dissolve one day. May Allah protect us from shaitan and his fitna. Ameen. I hope all of you have benefited from the session. Jazakallah khair once again for attending the session. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وإكرته بعدد كل معلوم لك. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.